All right, we're in Trig Unit 2, Day 1, Part 2. So we're going to, actually we're not going to do this. We already did this. But we are going to find inverse trig values for special triangles in the range. So we've extended our range 360 in both directions, in the negative and positive direction. This should not be here either. So, oh no, it should be, sorry. That is, this is the range 360 to negative 360 to positive 720. All right, so it's just one additional, well, depending on how you consider count the additional steps, but one additional thing to remember to do. All right, so find the solutions for the following in the range of negative 360 to 720. And again, these lines don't show up. Cosecant of 2 square root of 3 over 2. So you probably first notice that that ratio doesn't necessarily look like a special triangle ratio. It's one that has to be derationalized. So remember, we're going to replace the 2. This should actually be 3. So sorry, there's a couple mistakes on here. I redid my slides this year. So we're going to derationalize that. So that means the square root or radical goes in the denominator, and then what's ever left in the numerator, which is going to be 2 after we get rid of this. So it's going to end up being 2 square root of 3. So cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. So we're starting out just like we did yesterday. We're just going to add a step at the end. Hypotenuse over opposite. So which triangle has a hypotenuse of 2 and an opposite of square root of 3? It's going to be our 60-degree triangle. This is positive, so it's going to be the positive quadrants, and also our answer will be in degrees because the range I give you is in degrees. All right, so we're going to draw our xy. We're looking at positive in 1 and 2, so obviously this is 60. This one's going to be 180 minus 60, which is 120. So these essentially are what I would call our base angles. Now we want to spread the range 360 in both directions. So all that means is once you have your two base angles, you're going to add and subtract 360 from each of those. So I'm going to take 60 and add 360, giving me 420. And I'm going to take 60 and subtract 360, giving me 300. And now I'll do the same for my other angle, 120. So I take 120 and add 360, take 120 and subtract 360. So most of the time you're going to have 6 angles. Quadrantals may be different, but most of the time you'll have 6 angles as your answer. So your answer is negative 300, negative 240. Those are the two negative angles right here, and then the two base angles, 60 and 120. So make sure you include those as part of your answer. And then finally, our larger angles, 420 and 480. So this is really the only extra thing we're doing from yesterday. All right, next example. So notice what's different. Well, other than the ratio, we have the range in radians. So that means the answer will be in radians. And all that means for me, I'm going to do everything in degrees and at the very end convert to radians. If you can do it in radians all the way through, that's fine. So we're going from negative 2 pi to 4 pi, which is negative 360 to 720. So the range is the same, it's just specified in radians. Tangent of theta is negative 1. So remember, when you have a whole number as your ratio, you're just going to put that whole number divided by 1. So we have an opposite and adjacent of 1 and 1, and that's going to be a 45-degree triangle. Since the ratio is negative, we're looking for the negative quadrants for tangent. So all students take calculus. So negative quadrants are going to be here and here, which are 2 and 4. And now we want to find, well, what angles do we have? 2 and 4, so these are our triangles. These are 45 degrees. So this is going to be 180 minus 45, which is 135. And this one is 180 plus 45, which is going to be 225. So our base angles, whoops, 4. I just did it in quadrant 3. Sorry about that. It's easy to make those mistakes, so it's always good to check. All right, so it's going to be actually 360 minus 45, which gives you 315. So those are our two base angles. I'm going to take those and add and subtract 360 from both. So 45 plus 360, 405. 45 minus 360, a negative 315. 315 plus 360, 675. 315 minus 360 is negative 45. So I do remember that 45 is pi over 4. So if I look at my base angles, I know that 135 is going to be 3 pi over 4. And 315 is how many pi over 4? Is that 7 pi over 4? Yes, 7 pi over 4. 45 is a little bit harder to do. Okay, so I have negative 315, so that's going to be negative pi over 4. Negative 45, which is just negative pi over 4. 135 is 3 pi over 4, 315, 7 pi over 4, 405. And on my calculator, I just divided 405 by 45 to see this is 9 pi over 4. And then 675 is 15 pi over 4. You should specify them as fractions. So I would start with pi over 4 and figure out how many times you multiply 45 to get this number, and then just put that in your numerator along with pi. And this would be your answer, your 6 values in radians. Let's see, I have one more example and then I have one for you to try. So again, this is going to be answer in radians. Cosine of theta is equal to negative 1. So cosine, and again, so we just make our denominator 1. Cosine is adjacent over hypotenuse, so we want to find the angle or reference angle that has an adjacent of 1 and a hypotenuse of 1, and that's going to be quadrantal. Since it's negative, it's going to be only this value here, 180. So we only have one base angle because 180 is the only angle in 0 to 360 that gives you a negative 1 for cosine. So we only have to add and subtract 360 from one angle. So this is our reference angle. This is our one answer. Add and subtract 360, and you're going to get 540 and negative 180. I know that 180 is pi. So I'm going to have negative pi, positive pi, and then this is going to 540 is, I don't know, 3 pi. So it's 3 times 180, and those would be your 3 answers. All right, so I would like you to practice this. Tangent of theta is equal to negative square root of 3 in the range negative 2 pi to 4 pi. So your answers should be in radians. You should try that one out and then check your answers in class. So your homework is going to be the rest of that worksheet, which is 13 through 18. Not a lot of problems, but since they're a little more work, cut them down. And there is a new web activity up for you to try. Bring any questions to class.